How do you think about, like, I have habits that I was more consistent with in the past that I've
Mm,
fallen off from for whatever reason. How do you
sure.
think about re-engaging with an old good habit? Like
So
picking up where you left off.
it's a good question, and this is something that I don't know if I would say I've changed my thinking as much as I have learned something that I didn't know over time. So um, people don't usually say this explicitly, but in the back of their mind, when people set out to build a habit or they're thinking about being good at their habits, they kind of think, what would it look like to be successful at this? Would mean that it would mean that I do it every day for the rest of my life. Is
Yeah,
kind of that I would not
sure.
miss it anymore after I started. And in reality, I first of all, I don't think that's a good standard for what makes a habit successful. And also, I don't even know that it really is optimal. Instead, what I have been encouraging people to do a lot more recently is, what if you just let your habits change shape based on the season that you're in? And I
Mm,
don't think it means that you abandon the habit, but it does mean that you refine it or you edit it. So, like, let's take my writing habit as an example. I would say that I've had a good writing habit for the last 12 or 13 years. But in some sense, if you're being strict about it, you could say that I broke that habit a couple times. Like, for example, for the first 3 years that I wrote a new article every Monday and Thursday, and they were like 2,000 to 3,000 word pieces. And I did that for 3 years. And then I signed the book deal for Atomic Habits, and I didn't have the capacity to do that and write the book. So I switched to writing the book for the next 3 years, and I still did some writing on my site, but I wasn't really doing it in the same way. And then now the last like 5 years, I've been writing a weekly newsletter, which is much shorter. You know, it's like maybe
yeah,
500 words at most. But that gets written once a week. And I think it's fine that the writing habit has changed shape over time. It
sure.
doesn't need to look the same. My exercise habit is a similar story. Like, for a while before I had kids, like, I was working out, I was training for longer sessions, maybe it was like 90 minutes, you know. And then, we had a period there when kids are little and you got toddlers, and it was like, listen, the most I can possibly carve out is like 45 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
And that's just what it's going to look like. And there are a lot of days when all I had was like 15 or 20 minutes, and I would just go in and do like one set of squats. And that doesn't look like a full workout, but it's a lot better than doing nothing. And
Yeah.
so, anyway, I think if you have a habit that served you well and you're sitting there thinking, I would love to reclaim this, I would love to bring this back in my life in some way, I think one of the first questions to ask is, what would it look like if this changed shape a little bit? And what is the right shape for this habit in my current season? Um, and then there's a second question to ask, which is, what would this look like if it was fun? And
Yeah.
like, what sounds fun to you changes over time. But you'd be surprised. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people choose habits because they think they should have them, or like
Yeah.
their peers want
They
them
feel
to have them,
guilty
or
that they don't have them.
yeah, yeah. It's like people are like, oh, I should read more. And it's like, well, that's fine. But like, what would it look like if it was fun for you?
Yeah.
Um, so that doesn't mean every habit in your life is going to be like the most fun thing that you do. It's not always
Yeah.
going to feel like going to a concert or something, but pretty much any habit can be more fun than the default. And I think it's
Yeah.
worth it to lean your head against that and try to come up. Okay, you want to exercise? Great. Let's brainstorm like 50 different ways that you could live an active life, and then pick the one on that list that sounds the most fun to you. Or like, I had one woman who, she wanted to start, she felt like she was eating out for lunch too much. She wanted to bring her salad in and, make a salad each day. And she just kind of felt like making a salad sounded a little bit like a chore, and she wasn't quite ready to, like, when she said she wanted to do that, she ended up feeling friction and not doing it. So she asked herself this question of, what would this look like if it was fun? And she started making, I think she called it a party in a bowl. So, in the beginning, she would like sprinkle potato chips on it, or, she would do things that you
Yeah.
wouldn't consider healthy, but it made it fun. And then once she had done this for like a month or two, and it was already, it was kind of more established, and she was bringing it in every day. Well, now there's all kinds of ways you can improve the habit. But
Yeah.
I think starting with fun and starting with what is the right shape, those are two good ways to reclaim a habit you've lost.
Yeah, my writing habit has evolved similarly. I think originally it had to be discipline, black and white, you do it or you don't do it. And now I feel like I've slowly, steadily lowered the stakes of it. So now it's like, did I make a positive contribution to my writing today? So
Hmm.
sometimes that's editing, sometimes it's writing, sometimes it's adding, sometimes it's deleting, sometimes it's a huge contribution, sometimes it's a little contribution. But as long as I'm doing the thing, that's
Yeah.
checking the box. I,
The
I
ball
I
needs
love
to be
this.
moving forward.
Yes, I love this magical phrase also that I don't think we say enough in this society, which is uh more often than not?
Mm.
You know, like we're all or nothing, or do you do it every day? Are
Yeah.
you the best in the world as it, as opposed to like more often than not, do you eat healthy? More often than not, did you,
Hmm.
not hit the snooze button? More
Hmm.
often than not, did you do the thing? And cumulatively, more often than not, if you do something, you're going to end up in a pretty good space. Now, there's some things you don't want in your body. It's not, no, more often than not, I don't do heroin, right? There's
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
things not at all,
Yeah.
but I think most things, it's like more often than not, are you bringing your lunch from home as opposed to grabbing fast
Hmm.
food? For most people, the switch between what you were doing before and more often than not is going to be significant, if not transformative.
Huge. Most people are not even close to the level of consistency they think they are.
Yeah.
Most people are not even doing stuff like half the time that they think they're doing it.
Yeah.
So if you are actually doing it more often than not, that's a huge jump in performance. And I would even say for most areas of your life, let's call it 80 to 90% consistency is probably a better place to live than like 99% consistent. You
Yeah.
probably, for most things, you probably don't actually want the lifestyle that would allow you to be 99% consistent. The person who like has not missed a single run in 17 years, it is such a big part of their life that there are lots of other trade-offs that they're making that you probably don't want actually. It would probably require you to change your life in a really dramatic way to be that consistent with it. But if you do your run 90% of the time, well,
Yeah.
that's probably great. And that still means you got the flex to deal with the rest of life. So I would say that's for most things, that's probably the right place to live.
Yeah, more often than not, are you more often than not making a positive contribution? Are you more often than not doing the thing, as opposed to I need to become a totally new person, living a totally new life, doing everything in a new way? It's just, and yeah, your point of like, hey, so you consistently did it 99% of the time for 5 years, and then you came to loathe it, and so you stopped doing it, or you quit, or you got burned out. Uh,
Or you were even
Cumulatively,
really good at that thing, but you strained all of your personal relationships in the process. Like
totally.
what's the cost of success? And there are a few things in life, like literally most of us maybe have one or two things that are worth extreme sacrifice,
Yep.
and everything else can be more often than not.